Today we're talking all about the topic of trust. So if it's a big subject. If you're struggling with trust issues, either trusting other people, trusting the universe, or trusting yourself, this video is absolutely going to be for you. So we'll be talking through some real life examples. We'll be talking about the life cycle of trust and how we may develop trust issues, particularly from childhood. And we'll be giving you lots of tips and advice of how you can start trusting again. And at the end of the video, David will be doing a short guided meditation.
We'll be doing
a short guided meditation together on trust. So you will want to watch all the way through the video. So to begin with, David.
Yes, Alex.
Yeah. Can you give me some highlight examples of typical issues that clients come to you with around the topic of trust? So, for example, maybe trust in relationships.
Yes, so I think that's the main one. I think that being let down, your partner having an affair, breaking up the marriage, I think in general that would be the number one issue, because they've promised you over the years so many things, and then you find out that something else is going on behind your back. And I think that's the number one. The first headline is that. The second one, I would say, trusting the universe in general, thinking that they're getting a bad deal, thinking that things don't always work out for them. And they'll come with a big, long list of, I've just lost my grandma, and I've just lost my job, and I've just lost my dog, or what, and they'll list it up, and they'll make a connection, and they'll go, and the universe seems like it's against me. And I think perhaps the third one, and I think you'll find that during this talk, we'll come back to this, is trusting yourself, having trust with yourself. And
an example issue with having trust in yourself or not trusting yourself would be what?
Well, being unsure that you're making the right decision, looking back, and this is when one of the three lies comes into effect, saying things like, this is the number one you get with not trusting yourself, I'm not good enough. So looking back and saying, this has happened, I can't do this because I'm not good enough. And so therefore, you lose trust in yourself. You're not listening to yourself, and you don't value yourself, and you're looking around to get value from someone else, or validation.
Or I guess, advice and guidance from other people rather than trusting yourself.
Yes, you start to value other people's opinion as over you. So instead of going with whatever you want to call it, I would call it Shen, your spiritual understanding. Most of you, I guess, would call it your gut feelings, your inner knowledge. Instead of going with that, you're looking around for someone or something else that you can follow their advice. I kind of think you do this for another reason as well, because if something goes wrong, you can blame them. You don't have to take responsibility.
That's why the human-centered mind can be very clever and manipulative in a way, can't it?
Very clever. It's like a justification. You wouldn't say to anybody else, but you say to yourself, oh, I got that wrong. Oh, he gave me some bad advice, or I followed them and I shouldn't have followed them. And really, at the end of the day, the trust should be with you and connected to you. And be prepared. I was going to say be happy to make mistakes. I wouldn't say be happy. Be prepared that you're not perfect. And everybody says this, and everybody agrees. But do you actually accept the ramifications that you are not perfect? No one's perfect. And no one can always get it 100% right. And when you say to yourself, I'm not good enough, the other end of that pendulum is, I want to be perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can talk a lot more about the kind of detail of how the human-centered mind plays these tricks on us, the manipulations, what it tells us, why we listen, all that sort of stuff later. But I guess what you've said in terms of there's trust in relationships, trust in life and the universe after, say, trauma or bad things happening or keep happening, perception of, and also trusting yourself to make the right decisions, whether it's in your personal life, in your career. I guess a lot of coaching clients you have come to you with career issues and being scared whether they're trusting they're making the right life changes or career changes for themselves.
Yes, and I mean, I had one this morning. making a great change, and he's made great steps. And he actually said, I can experience a dilemma. Is it my head or is it my heart? And I think this is a great dilemma. I know I should do this, but my heart is telling me to do that.
So it's trust.
It's trusting that gut instinct that what may look like the short-term benefit may not be the best long-term benefit. But you know, if you just drop your shoulders and take a breath, you know what's right for you. Yeah. You always know what's right for you. I'll go even further. Only you know and that's so what's right for you.
And I guess that's going to be one of our conclusions. Advance warning. We're going to tell you why you know what best. You know best. Trusting yourself is vital. But before we get to that, David, let's talk about what I guess I've just come up with this phrase, this idea of a life cycle of trust, because I know from the teachings we've given in the past, and we talk about the Tao baby mind and babies being born purely trusting.
I love to talk about this because I can give
trusting 100%. Trusting 100%. So tell us more about that.
No, I just love talking about this because this is my translation. He didn't say it like this, but one of the masters that I really love and respect in the Wudong Mountains once said this to me. He said, we were talking about trust and how you lose trust or you lose a connection to trust. And he said, and again, this is my translation. He says, you've never heard of a baby coming down the birth canal and just before it comes out, he goes, whoa, hang on. Who's going to educate me? Who's going to change my nappies? Who's going to feed me? No, the baby just comes out with the energy of trust, with the energy of acceptance. And that's what the Tao is called, the Tao baby mind. It becomes out pure. It becomes out inquisitive. It becomes out accepting. It doesn't come out with doubt. It doesn't doubt itself. It wouldn't come down that birth canal if it doubted the mother or itself. It just comes down with this chi energy of love and force. There's no holding back there. And I just love that teaching. I don't know. It's just a beautiful teaching.
And when I hear it, I find it very moving, not because of kind of the purity of the baby, but it reminds us that we are still that pristine energy. And it kind of upsets me because when we don't trust, when we have fear or have red light feelings of fear, we've moved away from that place where we should be, that natural, authentic state. So I guess in this life cycle, we then are, grow a little bit older as children. We have childhood teachings and we have childhood experiences which affect that kind of starting position, that pure level of trust. So tell me more about what goes on.
No, can I just comment, because that's one of the hardest things that I have to deal with. I'm looking at these amazing people, awesome people who have got over such great adversities in their life and difficult situations, and they've survived and they've done it really well. And I have to hear them saying things to me like, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I'm unlovable. And it's exactly what you said. They're denying the very essence, their Shen, I call it, their spiritual truth. They're denying that by saying those three lies. And I find that really difficult to kind of comprehend. And so it's very important to understand that you do and you are, and you can never lose that authentic spiritual truth.
And it's not been damaged.
It's not been damaged.
It's not been taken away from you.
I hear words today, I've heard, it's soiled, I'm dirty. This is not true. Please, if you believe that, cannot be true. Yeah. You are pristine, pure. You are a reflection. Here comes another beautiful Taoist saying, you are a reflection of where you came from. And here's one of my masters. Apples do not come from orange trees. You come from the universe, this majestic, wonderful place. You are a child of the universe. To doubt yourself is doubting the essence of your journey and where you came from. Now, why people do this is because when we come into the world as children, we're looking, quite rightly, there's nothing wrong in this. This is not wrong. We're looking for guidance. We're looking to be educated. We're looking to be taught. And so if we get teachings, and this is not taught intentionally, I always say this.
Or it's not taught intentionally with a bad intention.
Well, it's not taught intentionally to harm you.
Yeah.
Parents don't sit round their kitchen table and say, now, how could we screw up our child's life? They don't do that. But when they say things like, oh, you're not very good at maths, or your spelling's poor, that doesn't encourage you. You start to believe that stuff. Now, they're not saying it to harm you, but they're saying things like, oh, you're a bit chubby, or you're a bit bonny, or you're a bit too tall, or you're a bit too short. And they're saying those things.
Encouraging you as a child to begin to doubt yourself.
Absolutely.
So what happens, because another example I can think of, again, a non-intentional thing from a parent trying their best, is when the parent suffers, say, from red lights of anxiety. They don't trust, and they are kind of saying to you all the time, oh, you've got to be careful. You must watch out. Oh, if you do that, it's going to be a big problem for you. Don't do that. I'll look after you. Yeah. And kind of instills that lack of trust in, I guess, the universe.
Well, there's two things here. You're absolutely right. If you're brought up with a person that basically is teaching you the world is out to get you.
Or the world is full of problems.
You're going to learn that. Yeah. But remember the pendulum? On the other side, a lot of my clients, when we go through the golden thread, we find out that they've been overly protected. Yeah. It's been like a bubble being put around them where they can't make decisions and they have to refer to their parents or like to a higher source.
Because they don't trust themselves.
Because they don't trust themselves, because their parents are not instilling that trust in them. And they're very worried about making a mistake and being criticized and not being able to please their parents. And they believe they have to earn love and they have to earn respect and validation, I call it. So they're always looking outside for that validation. And really what we should be doing as parents is to understand that chi energy comes from within. And the greatest gift that you can do for your child is to believe in them and then encourage them to believe in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to be, we call it CCJ, criticism, comparing, being judgmental. It's very important. I know every parent out there knows this teaching, but I'm embarrassed to say that I've sometimes done this. You criticize the act, you do not criticize the child. And it's very important. You're quite entitled as a parent to say, I do not like what you've done. That's not right. It's wrong to say you're not good enough, you're bad. And that's the distinction that you have to make. Because when you say those words, and if you're suffering from any of this, lots of my clients, can take it back. And they can actually, it happened today, they can bring it back to one phrase that their parents...
one moment in time.
One moment.
And that's really actually a very important point, David, because I know a lot of people will come to you, and they'll say, I'm suffering from a lack of trust, or, I'm suffering from depression or stress or anxiety, or whatever their headline, opening line is. And they'll say, I don't know whether it's important, but when I was 6, this happened.
Yeah. Or my father said this to me,
and so
or
the
my
very
mother
fact
said this
that
to
they
me.
can vividly remember one single pivotal point
important.
Means that absolutely it is important.
And that's what we call the inner child work.
Yeah.
So I'd ask you, if that applies to you, have a look at our video on the inner child work. Because
I'll put a link to it.
Because it's like a part of your mind there is frozen in time and it's stuck and it needs to learn that lesson. Okay. And we have to teach it that lesson. Else he can't move on. He gets on the carousel and goes round and around.
So it's clear from what you've said that teaching your child to doubt themselves by trying to, I guess, encourage them to be better, but giving them doubt in themselves, lack of trust in themselves, is disempowering. You've also said quite clearly that always focusing on the worst case scenario and the negative to try trying to protect the child, again, is counterproductive and disempowering. So what happens, say...
Can I just say one thing before you say one thing? This is very important. Criticism does not motivate.
It doesn't work as encouragement.
Anytime. Criticism does not motivate.
Particularly
criticizing your child will not motivate them. Don't do it. Do not do it. Don't be tempted to do it. Don't think you're going to encourage them to do better. Just don't do it. Give them proper, honest feedback, truthful. And if you take one thing away from this video, that would be a great teaching. Don't do that. Stop it. Don't get drawn into it. It's very easy to criticize your child. Stop it.
Okay.
Stop it.
Okay. So they're childhood teachings, which are pivotal in terms of erosion of trust, shall we say. What about if, as a child or a younger person, you have an experience which is traumatic? So, for example, a parent leaves the family home and it's not explained. Or, dare I say, as a child, you suffer some form of abuse from someone who you did trust. Surely then that means you trust less going forward from that point. Or does it?
No, well, what that means is you question the idea of trust.
As a child,
As a child. So, you know, you've got to be careful that the seeds of doubt haven't been planted by someone else, but just say they haven't, and then something happens, someone you trust, as you say, then goes on to promise you that I'll always be here for you, and then a year later they walk out of the family, or you're abused, or whatever Alex said. The first thing that you should understand is not to revert back to you and say, that's my fault. I shouldn't have trusted that person.
And say what we call the vow.
Absolutely. I'll never trust anybody again.
It must be me.
It must be my fault. I've misjudged that person. You can only go by what a person says to you. And mostly when a person says to you something, they do it with the best intentions. But positions change. And I'm sorry, that's, you know, people say, well, it shouldn't be in the perfect world. David, again, this morning I heard this. In a perfect world, David, this wouldn't happen. But we don't live in a perfect world. And so for a child to embrace, to come across what I call reality, when things that are not planned, when things they don't want to happen, then go on and happen. What they must not do is to blame themselves and to say things like, I'll never trust anybody again. I've been let down now and that's it. I'm putting the gates up. I'm shutting the door. I'm blocking myself in. Because if you're shutting the door, yes, you try and keep people from coming into you, but you stop yourself from coming out. You're building a prison that you get locked in the rest of your life. I would say we go to the Taoist teachings, according to what we're talking about, of acceptance, that this has happened. Now, how do you move through this?
So you're talking about acceptance as an adult, because obviously as a child, whether it's the teachings given to you by a parent or the experiences you have, similar to what we're talking about here, you don't necessarily have the mental capacity or the mental understanding, emotional intelligence to work through this. But now we're talking about, as an adult, you can deal with this.
You can do this. So two things there that you've drawn up. Isn't this strange? I've covered these subjects today without knowing this. Number one, when you're speaking to a child, you have to speak honestly, directly. What you have to be skillful, and this is the skill I believe of a parent, is the way you deliver that message. So obviously, if your child is 6, 7, you deliver it differently if it was 13, 14, 15. So your delivery of the truth is very, very important. Now, for yourself, there has to be a time in your life, whether that's 12, 18, 30, whatever time, that you become self-responsible, that you start to build up the trust in you and to know that people have done things that they shouldn't have done. But your question is, are you going to allow that to affect the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Are you going to allow that person, because when somebody does something that they know is wrong, they're not defining you, they're defining themselves. And what you're seeing is whether that person is your father, mother, uncle, godparents, grandparents, they're not perfect. I'm sorry. I wish we lived in a world where everyone was perfect and nothing went wrong. But being spiritual, we have to accept that is not reality.
And I think that's a massive teaching, you know, when we grow up, to realise that, you know, as children, you know, their light shines out of the people who look after us, whether it's grandparents or parents or older siblings. And then that realization and acceptance, as you say, that people aren't perfect and also you're not perfect, that's such a vital key, isn't it?
Well, it's a massive key, because it puts you into a no-win situation, you see. Because if you start being judgmental, because that's what perfection is.
If you believe in perfection, it puts you in a no-win.
It puts you into a no-win situation, because it means you have to be perfect. And then pretty soon you find out, oh my goodness, I've promised something and didn't deliver it. And and then that puts you into a real cleft stick. And this is the problem with being judgmental, because it's all right judging other people, but unless you're going to run a dual belief system, that you're running on a different belief system, if you're saying everybody else has to be perfect, then you too have to be perfect. And you won't be. No. And there's the problem.
No. So, I guess if you don't work through the issues of trust or lack of trust that you're bringing from childhood, and we'll come on to talk about how you do that next. But if you don't, I guess for you, David, you work with a lot of clients who come with inner child issues. So they carry the child issues and the child beliefs and the thoughts and misunderstandings related that are affecting their trust through into adulthood, and that's where you work with the inner child issues.
Right. So as I said, when I'm talking about the inner child, I'm talking about a part of their mind. You could call it emotional education if you prefer that, because although they're highly intelligent, very dynamic, very successful, good at the business, good wives, good mothers, good husbands, whatever, there's a part of their mind is almost locked it's frozen into that belief. So if it's trust, for instance, they find it difficult to trust other people, or they're constantly looking for this guru that they can trust, this guru that's got all of the answers. They don't exist. There's no guru with all of the answers. So they're constantly searching, disappointed, and then they keep blaming themselves.
And I guess it reinforces the lack of trust.
That's the carousel.
The search, false expectation, the
disappointment.
The natural disappointment because they're trying to achieve or find the unachievable in themselves or the universe or someone else. Then they get disappointed. Then that reinforces the belief, and that's the carousel.
And there's a carousel.
That's the carousel.
And so that spins round quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. And all you're doing is building the bricks that build your prison. Because the only answer for you then is to shut down. Close the door. Don't trust anybody. Everybody's bad. The world's against me. There's a whole heap of problems because you're not living your life then. And then you're looking around, justifying it, blaming other people. And you're using, oh, yes, you don't realize what happened to me as a child 30 years ago. This happened. This is unfair. This is unjust. And they keep on regurgitating, going round and around, locking themselves in more and more and more. Stop it.
Stop it.
Stop it. Yeah. It doesn't work. This is the key. This is the Wu Wei key. You know this does not work. Stop doing something that doesn't work. Stop it.
So this benefits this idea of a wall of protection, and it is like a lockdown. That you talk about the idea of a prison, where people have commented and said to us, it's like I've built this high brick wall which is impenetrable. The problem is
it does get penetrated.
Well, no, but they're saying the problem is now I'm kind of people don't get to know the real me. And frankly, I don't even know the real me because I've buried myself so deep in these layers of protection or this impenetrable brick wall.
So here's another one. Or I think I'm a fraud. Or I think I'm a fake.
Yeah.
How many of you said that to yourself? Imposter syndrome. Yeah. There you go. You see, it's all these modern words, but it's the same thing. So
this is the kind of knock-on problem of not trusting. Yeah. It affects all areas of your life. It affects yourself, your potential, your relationships, your career, what you choose to do with your life. And I guess it also affects the law of attraction as well, David, energetically. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit?
It absolutely direct links to the law of attraction. Because if you do not believe that people are trustworthy, if you do not believe that you can trust anybody, guess what type of people that you attract? And that's it. You attract more of the same. Remember, the law of attraction is not difficult. You attract what you want, not what you would wish for. Oh, I think that people are untrustworthy, so I hope a trustworthy person will come along.
Everyone has really betrayed me. All my partners have betrayed me in my life. But you know what? I really, really, really want to attract a good partner. But the evidence so far is that they don't exist. The universe is going to tune into what? The second part.
Exactly. Or they've got to go through this test. I've got to set them tests because I don't believe they really love me. I've heard this hundreds of times. Oh, this is what I wish I had £1 for every time I heard. Why do I keep attracting the wrong person? It's because that's what the message you're sending out. It's because that's actually what you're asking for. You're asking for the wrong person. You're asking for more of the same. So it always starts with you. See, don't try and change the outside externally, change internally. And that's what you can change. You can't change other people to suddenly become perfect and the perfect model of trustworthiness, but you can change you.
And equally, David, what I guess you're not saying is, well, if I just blindly trust everyone and I have a clear belief and intention that everyone I meet is going to be fantastic and great and never messing me about. And if I believe that, the law of attraction is going to send me lots of perfect people like that. That's not what you're saying either.
I am absolutely not saying that, because that's what word would you want to be? Gullible? You're going to get people looking for gullible
unrealistic.
people. Unrealistic. You're going to get people that are looking for people who are unrealistic, who will believe any load of rubbish that they tell them. They could tell them they're a bloody Nigerian queen and they'll believe them.
Sending you the emails asking for the money.
That's what I was just thinking. I have an email saying, I am a Nigerian princess.
Descendant from...
Just send me £5,000 and I can... Of course you wouldn't believe that. So that's what Wu Wei means, to come into your center, to take responsibility, not to swing to thinking that everybody's out to get you, but not to swing to the other thing, to be gullible and to think that everybody is going to think you're somehow special. Find the middle.
More neutral.
Just authentic would be my word. Just live from your authentic, true self. Be true to yourself. It always starts
and not try to control. So focus on yourself. Don't focus on expectations of other people.
Well, how would you focus on expectations?
I guess that's what people have an expectation when you go into a relationship with someone. You discuss and agree, I guess, some ground rules.
Yes.
And all you can do is hope for the best, that that's going to turn out right.
All you can do is to be honest when you're discussing those ground rules and understand, with all the best intention from you and from them, you will try your best to maintain that ground rules. Now, we've done a video on this.
You're not perfect and they're not perfect though. That's the key,
this is what a relationship is about. Because when you've been in the relationship 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, your values, your morals, your intention changes. And what you must do in any relationship is to relate. So you must speak to your partner. And this is where it goes wrong. You don't speak when you're values change. You don't speak when you want something different. You're not
So you change your ideas,
and you don't
or
say,
you start to have doubts about something maybe you've previously discussed or agreed, but that's not communicated. So then there's a breakdown.
There's a breakdown, and the other person is in the dark, and they think you're honouring the trust that you give them, but actually you are justifying it to yourself. You say something like, "Oh well, you don't do this and I don't do that, so that allows me to go and see other women or the men, or not come home when I said I'd come out," instead of dealing with the issue. This is why honesty and truthfulness is the core of this trust issue.
So I guess,
be honest with yourself, be honest with other people.
I guess what happens though when someone does betray you or go against what you previously believed you agreed, it's basically what you're saying is they've avoided having that conversation.
Yes.
They, that is a failing in terms of their inaction, but people make mistakes. Now, I'm not saying, that means you can accept that that's all right and they can keep on doing the same thing.
I'm not saying you should accept it. I'm just saying that they haven't done it to you. What they've actually done is betrayed themselves. They're actually defining who they are. So if their feelings or their thoughts or what they've promised to you 10 years ago has changed, surely they should come to you and say, I think we have to reevaluate our relationship, or the way that I've been doing things, or I think we should have an open relationship now. Whatever it is, that they should come and tell you about it so you can discuss it. No, this is where it goes wrong. They don't do that, and then they go and do something different. Now, this is not about trust. This is about the person not being self-responsible and not having integrity. This is more about integrity than trust. So you are quite in order to say, well, you promised me something and I trust that you're right. So the problem is not with you trusting. The problem is in their integrity of not being able to face up to the problem, because it's easier to go off and do something else rather than facing the problem.
Okay. So say somebody betrays you or goes against something that you've agreed or they've promised you. How do you actually deal with that? I mean, is it a case of just viewing it in the way that you've just described and then pressing the reset button? Or is it okay and acceptable to build up some sort of wariness about it, that person doing the same thing again, or the next partner, whether it's in a personal relationship or a business relationship or a friendship, the next person doing the same again? Is it appropriate to, or do you literally reset and start from neutral again? What's the Wu Wei on that?
I think it's difficult to give you an exact example because every slight situation will be differently. The word that I would avoid is the word that Alex has used twice, betrayal. Yeah. I wouldn't think that I was betrayed.
Okay, so how would you?
I would try and find what the issue is and see if that issue can be resolved. So, for instance, let's just say, here's one I heard just last week. They've fallen out of love. You've fallen out of love with me. Well, then, to be honest, I wouldn't want to continue a relationship. This is what I believe. Because if that person doesn't want to be in a relationship with me, I certainly don't want to be in a relationship with them. And if they would be happier with someone else, you know what? That's where they should be. Yeah. Because I believe that I'm a great person, and I believe there is someone out there that will want to be in a relationship with me, and I would prefer to be in a relationship with somebody who wants to be with me, and we can be a team together. So if my partner had an affair and she said to me things like, well, I've fallen out of love with you, I'd be pretty miffed she couldn't tell me that and be honest with me. But I understand that she couldn't. But then why would I want to keep somebody in a relationship that doesn't want to be in a relationship? The thing I'm trying to emphasize here, this is not about trust, you see. We've moved it on now to how do you run a relationship? Yeah. This is integrity. This is honesty. This is being truthful. Yeah. This is not hiding and running and avoiding and stagnating. This is treating your partner with the respect you should treat yourself with. Yeah. Because the person who goes and has an affair without telling their partner is also letting themselves down.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is be clear on what your ground rules are or your authentic principles are for you.
I think
communicate that to the other person. Then if for whatever reason, in whatever way, that other person, whether it's a partner, a romantic partner, someone that you're working with, a friend, a relative, if they go against or what your ground rules are, your principles, then certainly don't see it as a reflection on you.
It's nothing to do with you.
Don't see it as a reflection on the world as a whole or every other friend or every other potential romantic partner. It's about them. But so then it's about taking responsibility of whether you want to accept that action in them.
Absolutely.
Or not to accept it, and then communicating it and doing something about it. But then not tarring everyone else with the same kind of brush and expectation.
Exactly. Okay. You know, one of the things that I hear when I'm doing couple counselling, just before Christmas I was doing a couple counselling, and the man said, if only we could go back to where we were 10 years ago before the children. That's wishful thinking. You can't put something back. You are where you are now. In fact, you don't want to go back because that's brought you to here. What you want to do is to see...
And people change. Full stop.
This is the whole point of what we're talking about. You can't expect somebody to give you a guarantee 10, 15 years and stick to that guarantee. Now, they could well do that. They could well do that. Of course they could. That's possible. But that should be open to communication, to understanding, to knowing that there are little nuances of changes as we get older, as we change jobs, as the children leave home.
Open and flexible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But not betraying yourself.
Not betraying yourself. And if somebody else hasn't got the wherewithal to come and face you and to tell you the truth, that's not a reflection on you. That's not a breakdown of your trust. That's nothing for you to punish yourself about. That's a reflection of them and what their life choices and life values are. And they have to live with that. And then you make your decision on the new evidence that you have. You may want to continue the relationship. Fine. I don't think that's been a doormat. I don't think that's been picked on. You make your decision. They may not go and they may be honest and be with you for the rest of your life. They may go and have another affair. Then you make another decision. And so you keep that flexibility of your mind. You don't make this vow, this all-encompassing, I'll never trust anybody again. And all men are the same. All women are the same. All this are the same. We're not all the same. Everybody is unique and everybody is different. And you are unique and different. And honor your uniqueness. Because the thing about this is it's very important, this self-doubt, this lack of self-trust. It really is about you trusting your Shen. That really is the issue here. Do you trust your Shen? Do you trust you? And that really is the issue.
So, David, I just want to chat to you. We've had some specific questions sent from our supporters. So, on the topic of trusting other people, well, a few questions here. Can you be too trusting?
Yes.
Surely this means I'm going to get taken advantage of or I'm going to be a victim.
Yes.
Therefore, don't I need to be guarded?
No, you don't need to be guarded, but there's the two ends. I'm not saying be guarded and I'm not saying trust anybody. So it's what's the Wu Wei in that? What's the neutral, do you think, between trusting everybody and trusting nobody? I would say be in the moment, listen to the evidence. Listen to your gut feeling. Listen to that inner voice. That inner voice always knows. How many times have you said, I knew that was going to happen? You always know. So don't be pushed and bullied. Don't look for the extremes. Just be authentic and be truthful. But again, it starts off, you see, with being truthful to yourself. So, for instance, if somebody's sitting there and say, oh, of course you can trust me. I'll never let you down. And it doesn't sound right to you. You don't get the feeling. Ooh, then you question more. You take your time. If they don't like the question, you've already proved it right. If they can't be honest with you, you've already proved it right. So don't do the extremes. Don't trust everybody. That's crazy. And don't trust nobody. That's equally as mad. There's the pendulum swinging from side to side. Find the center line for you. And this is only right for you.
Yeah, I was going to say,
only right for you, not for me.
Is there like a specific, if your mindset is, I'm never going to trust anyone again, one extreme, or your mindset is, I'm absolutely open to trusting everyone 100%, and there's no caution there. What would be the affirmation for being in the Wu Wei with trust? Is there like
well, the one that come to mind immediately then was, I love myself.
Yeah.
I will not do anything that is not immediately connected and right for me.
Yeah.
And if I think and believe that this is right for me now, even though here's another thing, everybody tells you this person is the wrong person for you. But if you know it's the right person, go with what you know. And if you prove wrong, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
In that moment, that person was the right person for you. So I would say the middle Wu Wei is about trusting yourself.
And loving yourself.
Loving yourself.
Because then
being
if
connected.
Something goes wrong, something doesn't turn out as planned, someone doesn't do what they said they would do.
Then learn the lesson.
Learn the lesson, but the very fact that you've affirmed that you love yourself and you trust yourself, that is kind of the unwavering, strong center point which anchors you down.
And it actually makes you stronger, because then you learn the lesson. So then you'll say, well, I believed all that stuff they told me. Why did I believe that stuff? Then you can start to do the golden thread for yourself and find out that perhaps you are too gullible. Perhaps you are looking for validation. So the person saying, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, I'm blah, 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 blah. Why would that sway you? So maybe that's the lesson you need to learn in that encounter with that person. You're looking for external validation and not validating yourself.
Yeah. Okay, great. So next question. Well, I think we've already talked about this. You've trusted, you've been betrayed, or your perception is that you've been betrayed, someone's let you down. What happens next? So we've said you basically move back, avoid the human-centered mind's tendency to want to swing you to the extreme, which is trust no one.
Blame everybody, every
trust
future
no one.
person.
And, I did my bit, but they didn't do theirs. We're saying, don't avoid that tendency for the inner child, the human-centered mind, to drag you to the extreme and reset to neutral. Affirm, as you say.
So neutral for there now would be very proud of yourself that you kept to what you promised. Your integrity is intact. Your honesty is intact.
Okay, that's great.
You are living to your truth. This is the time that you should be proud of yourself. Unfortunately, your partner couldn't do that for whatever reason. I wouldn't judge them, but at least you found out now. So you do not have to waste one more minute with a person who doesn't value and love you. Every minute with that person is wasted. First of all, value and love yourself. Pat yourself on the back. Well done. You've kept to your word and your integrity is intact. Now open yourself up for someone to be attracted in your life, following the values of love, honesty, and integrity. Then you'll find an integral person coming into your life with your values.
And that I guess that acknowledgement of how you've stayed to your truth, that you've been trustworthy, that you've done your best, that that you're awesome. That is then the energy you will radiate out, rather than radiating out the energy of the human-centered mind, going, everything's going to go wrong, everyone's going to mistreat me, the next person's going to be a problem. So rather than emitting that energy, that, as you say,
that's just going to bring more of the same.
Okay.
You're going to attract the same type of partner whose integrity isn't as high as yours. Yeah. Pat yourself on the back. Acknowledge that you're awesome. Your sense of integrity is very strong. You want to attract a new partner with a good sense of integrity. Here's where a lot of people disagree with me. That partner that's gone off with another affair, wish them well. I hope they find happiness. Concentrate on you finding your happiness. So that starts with you first. Be happy with yourself. Here's another great thing. You do not have to be in a relationship to be happy. A relationship is great. I love being as in a relationship. But first of all, it starts with you. You've got to be happy, because the one relationship, here comes another Taoist teaching, the only relationship you'll have from the moment you're born to the moment you die is with you. Make sure that relationship has integrity, honesty, truth. Build up that trust in you. Never doubt yourself. Once that doubt starts, you're sowing the seeds. You're sowing the seeds to go down the wrong path. Stop it. Come back to yourself. You will have twists and turns. Things won't always go right for you. I'm very sorry. That's the relationship. That's the reality that we live in. Things don't always go the way that you think they should go. Life and the universe is not the way you think it should be.
Okay, well, that brings me on to my next set of questions, which is about trusting life, trusting things to work out in general. So if someone has suffered some sort of trauma, whether it's in their childhood or as an adult, often it's related to death of a loved one, or loss of something that they weren't expecting to lose, or repeated ill health. How can they, if they start to develop this kind of perception that bad things keep happening, or they just want to kind of hide away and close off and not have that happen again, how can they learn to keep trusting despite what has happened? Trust the universe.
Well, this is a good one I hear regularly. I call it cherry picking. And you get somebody sitting in front of you, and sometimes I'll make a list and they'll run down the list of all the bad things that happened to me.
Yeah. And some can be very bad. So we're not making light of it.
Absolutely not. Please don't think I'm making light of this. This is the last thing I'm making. But they'll have the list to loss of parents, to be putting in homes, to be abused, to failing the 11 plus. They'll list it, and I call it cherry picking. How about all the other things? And they'll go, well, what other things? Well, all of the other things. One of the greatest things is, despite all of that adversity, despite all of that anguish, despite all of that angst, despite all of those knockbacks, look here. You are miraculous. How on earth did you get through all of that? There must be something deep inside of you, a driving force, an energy that climbs every mountain, every obstacle that's put in your way. My goodness, what do? You traverse that obstacle and you champion yourself. Why isn't that on the list? And they go, oh, well, that's not important, is it? Hey? That's the most important thing. That's the most, because that is what defines you. Your problems don't define you. It's how you deal with your problems. Now, if you want to have a life with no problems, a fairy tale life where bunny rabbits jump in the field and roses grow around the door and everybody smiles and everybody's happy, like that film Truman's World, that's not the way the world is. I'm sorry. And if I'm the one to tell you, you may hate me for this, but I'm sorry, that's not how we live. Now, I don't mean to say the world is out to get you, the universe hates you, they're down to beat you down. But the universe has twists and turns, and it's how you deal with that. This is reality. This is
and
what
it can be a
teach
harsh reality for some people in some parts of their lives.
Terribly. I got clients. I never thought that human beings could be so hurtful to other human beings, to their own children. I've got clients, I wouldn't like to tell you what. I sit sometimes and listen to say, this, I could never hear anything as bad as this. And then guess what? A month later, I hear something is even worse. But the evidence is in front of me of the opposite that they're trying to convince me. They're sitting there 30 years after, and despite not thinking about it correctly, they're still surviving. Imagine, so it's like they're living their life pulling a big anchor around with them. Imagine if they just let go. If they just let go and accept it.
So
and
let go of what happened.
This is part of my journey. This doesn't have to define me. I don't have to go in a prison of my own making to make someone pay for it. lock yourself in a prison, the only person that suffers is you.
So how...
If you play... Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
If you play this game, this is a game where the more you try and win, the more you lose. That's really important. Punishing yourself, the other person, whoever it is, parent, partner, friend, doesn't feel punishment. It's like taking poison and expecting them to suffer. If you take poison, you will suffer. If you go into a prison, you are the one sitting in that prison.
So if someone has suffered repeated traumas or repeated disappointments or repeated things going wrong in their life, they've built up this wall of protection. They've locked themselves in the prison because they believe that that was going to make them safe. The human-centered mind, the inner child wants to be kept safe. It's scared and it's fearful.
Yes.
Right. So.
But it's never worked.
It's never worked. Right. So we know that. They know that now. How do they begin dismantling this wall, or how do they release themselves from the prison? Is there something they can do?
Something you can do right now if this applies to you. Click off this, go to YouTube, watch our inner child video, because it's your inner child, your beautiful, darling inner child, about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. She or he is stuck. She's very clever, but she doesn't know how to deal with this problem. You have to go back lovingly. You do not judge. You do not criticize. You do not compare her. You listen to her or him. You do not shut it off. You do not ignore them. You deal with their issue.
And give them reassurance.
And give them reassurance by giving them a solution. Once you offer them something else that they can do, they're clever. They'll take that. They don't want to be in a prison. They want to go out playing, swimming in the sea.
When you say,
they want to enjoy themselves.
When you say a solution, though, David, do you mean... So I guess what the inner child is saying is, this has happened. It was awful. I was overwhelmed with painful red light.
Yes.
I don't want that to happen again.
Yes.
And it's going to happen again.
No, well then I would say
so
to
then
you,
what you do is you tell them there are other possible outcomes here.
Absolutely.
You show them the other possibilities.
Absolutely.
You reassure them with the other possibilities of what could happen.
You listen to their vow.
Yeah.
So if that's their vow, I believe this happened to me once and it was awful. Agreed. It was terrible. I managed to survive it with the skin of my teeth. I think it's going to happen again. I would say, why? Why do you think it's going to happen again? Why have you come to that conclusion? Here's the golden thread now, you see. Now you start to talk to your child, that part of your mind, and you start to find some other ways that it can deal with these difficult situations. Because we also can't assure it that they're never going to meet anybody who's going to treat them badly. But what we can do is give them the tools and the knowledge to identify those, to reconnect back to themselves, to have a partnership with you, to work together as a team so that you absolutely have trust in yourself, that you can surmount any issue or any problem that comes your way. You will survive. And I have evidence for this, because the evidence is you've already done it. You've already done it, and you can do it even better now when you're a team together. So it's not like you still haven't done it. You've done it. You've survived. You've gone through it. Now you can do it even better. You can do it with more gusto, with more drive, with more determination, with more love, with more openness, with more flow. This is Wu Wei I'm talking about here now. Being in the zone, trusting yourself, shrugging off people who pull you down. Don't be around people who drag you down. Why would you want to be around people who are miserable? Move on. Be confident in yourself. Confidence is a feeling that you create by being truthful, being honest with yourself, and don't cherry pick all of the bad things.
And don't let the inner child to come up with like, well, it's going to happen again because it happened before here, 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 and here.
Okay.
Because again, it's the inner child is cherry picking.
That's right. So I'm saying, if that's the case, do you think if you give me 5 occasions that this has happened. Do you think that thinking it's going to happen has got anything to do with that? I would say absolutely yes.
Or the next 5 occasions it's going to happen again.
Here's the law of attraction. You have been attracting that energy into your life. Thinking bad things are going to happen is attracting bad things to happen. It's simple as that.
So sitting quietly with your inner child, going through this kind of dialogue, listening first, hearing its evidence.
Yes.
Then presenting your own kind of evidence and reassurance. And I guess saying that, now we are going to work together as a team going forward. You can trust me.
Now, first of all, I can tell you the child will not trust you. When you say that to him, the child, it's a good job I don't swear, but he'll say...
You've never done anything good for me before.
Exactly.
You've let me down every time.
That's what the child will say. You mean to say, you haven't been listening to me for 30 years and now I've got to trust you. The child...
So what do you say? What do you say then?
You've got to now... This is your integrity. This is your honesty. You've got to keep on working with the child and you've got to give him the evidence that things have changed. You've learned the lesson.
And you're learning
so
too.
You can teach her or him the lesson because the child's not stupid. You think the child's going to roll over and say, oh, great, let's go along together. I trust you now. The child will go, do the next best thing. And you have to keep on talking to her. But remember, that part of your mind needs you, wants you. It needs to be guided. Just because it's a little bit difficult doesn't mean it's an evil child or a bad child or, and remember I've used it before. I won't go through it again. But if you ever want to see this in real life, look at the Channel 4 Super Nanny when they go into a house and they see a child playing up. Your child will be a bit like that at the beginning, very unruly, very disruptive, and it's because it's had no guidance and no compassionate self-discipline. And so you've got to give yourself, we're not talking about months, we're talking about a week or so, constantly, every day, 5 minutes, speaking to the child, listening to the child, answering the questions. If you're stuck, you can always email us or book a session. We'll help you. So work through these issues. So you're working and you're showing the child there's another way. Here's another, sorry, but this is, we're going on to, we'll have to do another video on inner child. You don't tell the inner child what to do. Do not fall into that trap, because if you tell the inner child what to do,
it'll do the opposite.
Thank you. Like all children.
So you give it options.
You give it options.
Present it with the global evidence rather than just letting it continue to focus on its cherry picking of bad things that have been done to it or bad things that have happened or betrayals.
And then you can turn the tables and you can say, why won't you do this option? Isn't that a great question? Why? You know the carousel doesn't work. You know going around and beating yourself and locking yourself in a prison doesn't work. Why wouldn't you choose this option or that option? What you got against it? I can tell you what it would say. It's the unknown. I don't know it. I do know the carousel. And then we can then talk and you can say, well, look, I'll walk down this road.
Read that reassurance.
I'll hold your hand. We can do this together. I'll walk one step in front of you until you get stronger, until this road becomes known. Before the known becomes, the unknown becomes the known. And that's normally why the child will always choose a carousel, because it doesn't like the unknown. It's scared of the unknown. But you know what? With practice, the unknown becomes the known, becomes familiar. And then the child will just go and happily play down that road without bothering you at all.
And so having this loving, compassionate, honest,
truthful,
self-disciplined conversation with yourself, your inner child, repeatedly, when it's appropriate, particularly when you get any red light, uncomfortable or painful feelings around trusting.
That's the child talking.
That's when you need to have the conversation time and again. Be patient, because that is what is going to dismantle the wall. That is what's going to unlock you from the prison that you've created in terms of lack of trust.
I love that analogy, Alex, because it's a great analogy, taking down the wall. So unfortunately, you have to take it down at the beginning, brick by brick. for about 2-3 weeks, different for everyone. But once you start taking down the wall, then the child gets involved, and then you'll kick the wall down because he doesn't or she doesn't want to be in prison. He wants to be out playing. He wants to be having a great time. He wants to be laughing. He wants to be joking. He wants to be getting on with life. This is the nature. Remember, we talked about coming down the birth canal. She has still got that nature to expand, to explore, to do new things. That's its real nature that's been locked away. And we can release that. You can release that really quickly. I'm not talking about years of work. I'm talking about weeks or a month of work. But you have to be dedicated. You have to be disciplined. You have to do it every day. The child has to build up the trust in you that you really take this seriously, and you trust yourself, and you trust the child, and the child can trust you. So you see, when we've gone through all of these questions that Alex have asked us, we come back to the core. Trust is about you trusting you. That's what trust is about. Let other people do what they want to do. Let them paddle their own canoe. You trust you. You can't be betrayed. You can't be let down as long as you trust you. They're just defining where they are on their journey. Be clear where you are on your journey. This journey for you is unique, marvelous. Remember what I keep telling you. You are awesome and divine. Never, never, never doubt yourself, because when you doubt yourself, you will lose trust in yourself. So stop it. Breathe. Drop your shoulders and reconnect back to your truth.
Well, I think that's a wonderful place to end. And David, I'd like to ask you now to guide us through a short meditation and to reaffirm some of the points that we've gone over there. So I hope everyone,
I'd love to do
if
that.
You're able to, if you're not driving or operating machinery, please just take a moment, and David will guide us through a lovely guided 5-minute meditation to close off this teaching.
So I always like to remind you, remember, I use the word meditation because I like the word, but I don't mean you have to sit cross-legged in front of a Buddha or a candle. You can be sitting down, lying in bed. You can be walking, listening to this. Just give yourself a moment. And what happens in our busy day, we get caught up in all of the do's and don'ts and the day-to-day traumas and the upsets and the stimulation. And it's really good. The Chinese Taoists call it being the observer. It's a very powerful meditation. So just observe where you're sitting or standing or where you are now, just for a moment. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. And you're observing the atmosphere around you, the energy around you, the environment. And you can drop your shoulders if you want to, make your arms nice and heavy. And you can just take a breath. And you can observe the breath and the body working together. And we talked today about things we take for granted. And this is something we take for granted, the breath of life. How the breath enters and leaves. And if you just give yourself a moment, you can observe that. And so we talked today about trust. And right now, you are trusting. Did you realize? Because you're trusting the next breath will be there for you. As you breathe out, here comes the next breath. So that's something that happens zillions of times. And you've trusted, and that's what's happened. And so when you stop trusting, you are doing something. And you're normally doing it because you're upset. You're offended. Something has happened in your life that you don't want, that you didn't expect, that came out of the blue, that threw you off kilter a little bit. Somebody looked in your eyes and told you something, that they loved you. You're the only one for them. They'll always be with you. And then you find out that they wasn't truthful to you. And what I've tried to show you today, that is not a reflection of you. In fact, that has nothing to do with you. You haven't been rejected. You haven't been isolated. You haven't been let down, made redundant. What they're showing you, they're almost telling you, this is the person I am. I can make a promise, but unfortunately, I can't keep it. Now, wouldn't it be better if they'd have told you that? But here's something else they're showing you. They're saying to you, I can't tell you my truth. I can't be honest with you. I can't be truthful to you. And now you're learning that about them. Now, what you do with that information, as we said, is totally up to you. Totally up to you. You are now empowered. You can say, well, go and follow your path. I wish you well. I believe in myself. I will never let myself down. I will never betray myself. You make choices for your life. I choose right now to make choices for my life. I will not let your bad judgment contaminate my judgment. I value myself much more than that. And if you do that, that part of your mind that we call the inner child will laugh and giggle because it knows that you value that child. Because when you say to that child, I'm not listening to you, you're not good enough, you don't count, they're more important than you, you're not giving your child value, trust, honesty, integrity. And when you do that, then your reward will be so immense, so awesome. You will be surprised at what you can achieve. You will be amazed at just the energy, the drive, the determination. And I often say this, if you only believed in yourself as much as I believe in you, you'll be amazed. And even in the next 2 days, 3 days, try it. Don't doubt yourself. Just stop. When you feel those seeds growing, stop. Don't be drawn down that road. Could you do that for me? As you breathe and soften. And just be quiet for a moment. And if you can picture your little child, could you just give them a hug? Could you just put your arms around them and bring them right into your heart? Just for a moment. And could you say this? I love you. We will never be separate. We are one. We will always be together. I do promise you that. You can trust that. And breathe. And come back into the room, and you're in control.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
That was brilliant.
Thank you.
So I hope everyone has enjoyed this particular video teaching.
It's a bit long.
As always, any comments or questions, please post them below. If you're watching this video on replay on our YouTube channel, don't forget to subscribe.
And press the bell.
And press the bell notifications button. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.